This is the Relentless podcast. My name is Christine. I'm a small business owner and student of success. I have become obsessed with talking with other entrepreneurs about their strategies, struggles, tactics, and routines. One of the key qualities that all of these individuals have in common, their ability to be relentless. And I am joined here with my friend and owner of Cafe 19, Casey Galloway. Hello, Casey.
Hi, Christine. Thanks for having me today.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Can't complain. It's been a little bit crazy, but I'm so excited to have you as my first guest. When you're in business, it's so hard to get out and talk with other people in business. I feel like I never get to just hang and pick their brains. And anytime we do, it's like I see so many things that are similar. We're all dealing with kind of the same stuff, and we never get to do that. So this is kind of our attempt to put it on a microphone and let some people listen. So thank you so much for being here with me. So for those that aren't in the area or are living under a rock, tell us a little bit about your business.
Sure. So I own Cafe 19 in Seneca Falls. We opened in 2013. Yeah, I know, 10 years. It's crazy it's been 10 years already. Thank you. So the whole idea of the cafe is that we wanted to honor the suffragists from the women's rights movement and put it in a modern, sort of tangible setting.
Yep.
With really good food. That's really, being a chef, that was my number one priority besides, having a cool atmosphere and place for people to come. I really wanted to put out a great product and have some unique, fresh items for people to try. It's definitely different than anything in the area.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It really has been like a breath of fresh air because it's got that like kind of modern and progressive vibe, but it's got the history aspect. And like you say, it's just great food. I mean, you can have the coolest environment in the world, but if the food doesn't hit, it's just not going to work, right?
Right, yeah.
So, well, that's so exciting. Yeah. You mentioned, the women's thing. This is the birthplace of women's rights. And I've always kind of admired how you did that because it's very pro-woman, it's very pro-feminism, yet you guys kind of walk this line. There's no politics there.
No.
Is that intentional?
It is. And it's very much about equality for me.
Yep.
I don't want people to come in thinking that we're a man-hating establishment or it's nothing like that.
Yeah, not the vibe at all.
No, not at all. We just really are inspired by the suffragists from the women's rights movement and what they did and, having them on the walls, being able to come in every day and see that is just very inspiring.
Yeah.
And, the customers love it. And
oh, for sure. And I mean, and for tourists that come too, it's like the place to go. And yeah, I really admired that because, we're living in an era of cancel culture, and we're seeing it more and more over the last like 4 or 5 years that so many companies have become almost activists a little bit. Mm-hmm. And, I always kind of grew up in the camp of like, no matter what you do, which side you take, you're going to be alienating somebody. And most of us are nuanced on things anyway. But so I've always admired how you guys have really kind of balanced that and made it welcoming for everybody. That's really, really cool.
Thanks. The biggest thing is that we serve people. We're in the service industry. And I don't care who comes in. I want you to have a good experience. Yeah. I want you to have good coffee, great food, and just enjoy your time there. I don't care about any of the
anything
nuances.
Else, right? Yeah. Well, that really comes across as a daily customer of Cafe 19. I could say that's definitely apparent. But so, did you always know that you wanted to go into food service? Have you always loved cooking? Tell us a little bit about that.
Growing up as a child, I remember the very first thing that I baked, I made a loaf of banana bread. And everybody loved it. And I was just kind of like, oh, I must be pretty good at this if people liked what I just made. So then I just kept making new things and trying it. And, I had sort of a natural talent to it. It runs in my family. My mom cooked a lot.
Okay.
Her mom owned a restaurant. in Sayre, Pennsylvania. She had a diner and she made all of her own pies and, back when it was 5 cents a slice.
Yeah.
A little different now, but
some changes there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it runs in our blood. My brother went to culinary school too, and he's not cooking now, but it's just in the family. But yeah, so I just sort of always felt inclined to move in that direction. Yeah. And I went to culinary school. I went to Paul Smith's College up in the Adirondacks. And then I've just worked in restaurants for the last 20 years now, probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any other places we would know that you've worked at?
I was sous chef at the Inns of Aurora for about 9 years. Mackenzie Childs used to have a restaurant on their property.
Yep.
And I was there for about 6 months before they closed it. And then I went to the Aurora Inn. But that was a really cool experience. The restaurant there is incredible.
And you get people from everywhere. So you're exposed to all sorts of people. That's really neat. So obviously, the last few years in business, none of us were really ready for with the pandemic and with COVID. What was that like for you? I mean, when you first found out, what were your thoughts?
It was definitely a progression of feels throughout
the whole range of emotions. Yeah.
When people first started talking about it, I was kind of skeptical, like, what's going on? People are overreacting.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't going to be that bad. But I think also living in a small town, we didn't really feel the effects of it as quickly as someplace like New York City or a bigger city. Yeah. I think the first time it really hit me was when I went grocery shopping and there was no toilet paper, there was no bread there. And I was like, what is going on? Something must actually be happening now.
Yeah.
So I remember when things really got bad and they shut down the restaurants and I was like, okay, we're going to just take 2 weeks. We're not going to do anything. We're not going to do takeout. We're not going to, we're just going to see what's happening here.
Yeah.
And it was scary because we really didn't know what was going to happen. I'm like, wait a minute, I can't go outside and go to the store and talk to people.
I remember walking through downtown right after, and it was mid-March, and everybody had basically done the 2 weeks to slow the spread. I know that's become kind of like a punchline now, but and I remember because I had to get outside. I'm someone, I have to be in motion. So I'm like, I'm walking. I started walking 10 miles a day. It was kind of sick, but I remember going through downtown and I just saw all the signs on everyone's doors. There wasn't a car. And it was just like, holy shit. Is this really happening? What is going on? And there was just so much fear and uncertainty that it was like, I don't know what's going on. And so, and I mean, and I only had one employee at the time and you had staff. So, I mean, that must have been another layer of kind of fear of how am I going to keep these people on? This is how they feed their families, right?
Yep. And I think that's the natural progression of things kind of is at least for the way my brain works is I see this, okay, how am I going to take care of my staff? Because that's really super important, obviously. Their livelihood is dependent on me and I don't take that lightly. So it was basically just finding a way to pivot and make things work. After 2 weeks, things sort of not settled, but we kind of got a grasp for how it was going to progress. And I was like, okay, so we're going to just do what we can. We started serving to-go dinners.
Yep. I ordered several.
And I think people got really tired of having to cook all of their meals at home and not be able to go out to eat anymore. So that was a way of sort of getting the food on the table without them having to be here and, save them a little hassle. Because I cook all day. I don't want to cook every single meal. Oh my God,
I know. And I mean, and especially people with kids too. I remember they're like, how many times a day do my kids eat? Mom just needs a break, and, and it I think we all realize too how much, how important that is to be able to go out, to be able to go somewhere and eat a dinner out and do something different. And, it was one of the most fascinating things for me from a business perspective was seeing who pivoted, what they did, and those who kind of were more dragging their feet and maybe trying we'll just ride it out and wait and see. And it's you can kind of see who's still here, and unfortunately who didn't make it. And it's just such a key point in business, and you hear it all the time. You got to be resilient, you got to pivot. But I mean, that was like the ultimate test for everybody of just like, okay, how the hell are we going to get through this? Because and for me, my husband is self-employed too. So neither of us had an option of like, okay, well, our company's going to keep us on payroll. It was like, what are we going to do? He's a photographer. Schools are closed. You can't go photograph families, And so it really was just a scary time. But I feel like, when things are rough, sometimes that's what makes you and shapes your business. I mean, are there any things that you guys did during the pandemic that you kind of still do now, or something that gave you a different insight that you're still leaning on?
Again, going back to the mothers being home with their kids all day and fathers being home with their kids all day and looking for activities for them to do, we started making like cookie decorating kits as an activity for, them to give their kid, because they get bored of watching TV and, coloring and it's like, what else? What can we do that's different?
Yeah.
So we do the cookie kits. We usually do them for holidays like Easter and Thanksgiving and whatnot, but people could order them anytime if they wanted to. And we did get a little bit more into making breads. So that sort of inspired some growth that's happened recently at the cafe, where we added an addition on and put a bakery in so we can focus on breads more. So we're working on starting a bread line right now. So that's exciting.
That's amazing. Yeah, you guys, it's been really cool to watch because you've added things, but it seems to be at a very strategic pace. You're not overextending or growing too quickly, but you're kind of bringing new things in like right at the right time. Like when you brought the smoothies in, and I love how you guys rotate your menu to kind of keep things fresh and seasonal. And, that's always exciting. But so you mentioned your staff, and one of the things, especially since the pandemic, we know that a lot of restaurants and places have struggled to find good help, keep people on. There's been a lot of turnover. You've had a lot of long-term people. You've had Tanya's been there for a while, and you've had a lot of people that are there long-term. What's your edge? What's your secret?
Man, I don't know if there's a secret, but I just genuinely care about my employees, and I think that they recognize that. And it's important for me to have like one-on-one relationships with all of my employees. They're not just and that's the nice thing about a small business, is people aren't just a number,
right?
And if my employees aren't happy, they're not gonna keep my customers happy. And so it's just a matter of getting to know them, understanding what their needs are, helping them to like reach their own personal goals within the industry. Yep. I have Joel is a new employee we've got right now. He's been there for about 6 months, and he's going to school, and he's motivated, and he loves the industry, and he's just like a sponge, and he wants to learn. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, yes, somebody who wants to learn. I'm going to, teach them everything that I can.
Yeah.
And I just think people appreciate that. Like they get recognized for the hard work that they do. And, I don't know. I think they just like the staff, and I let them eat free food too. So that
always helps. Yeah. No, you can definitely tell that there's a good culture there. I mean, going in as a customer, you can just feel it. And we've all been into a place where you walk in, and the person at the counter or somewhere is kind of almost annoyed that you're there, and you just never get that. And I think the leadership, it comes from the top, so however the person who's running things, it just kind of bleeds into that. So that's really cool. Now, did you ever imagine that you'd be training and kind of like outsourcing certain aspects of the business? Had you kind of always had that in mind, or were you kind of planning to be running everything kind of on your own in the kitchen when you first started?
That's a good question. So when the cafe first opened, I think, my goal is obviously for it to be successful, but I didn't have necessarily a locked in image of what it being successful looked like.
Yeah.
And so, and you said it sort of seems to have naturally grown, and that's what I do. I try to just be very present every day and see what the needs are and what's trending and, what people are asking for and just sort of adapt and grow in that direction.
Yep.
I try not to worry about what's happened in the past or worry about what's going to happen in the future. And I think, decision making is such a big part of just life in general, but being present, being able to make those decisions well on the spot, because a good decision today you don't know where it could lead in 5 years, so.
Yeah, for sure. Now, obviously, Cafe 19 is a huge success, and there's been little whispers about a new project that you are working on. I may have some inside information, but I want to hear it from you. So what's coming up?
Well, so Seneca Falls was awarded a DRI grant, which is for local development. And even before that happened, there was a building in town that I used to always drive by when I'd go pick my daughter up from school. And I was like, wow, this building would make such a cool restaurant. It was empty. It was just sitting there vacant. And I was like, oh, maybe one day. So then the DRI came to Seneca Falls and I was like, you know what? I'm ready to try something different. The cafe is, almost self-sufficient and I'm ready to try something else. And, opening another business allows me to provide more opportunities for the staff that I've got. So that's another reason that I've, pursued this.
Yeah.
So we went through the whole DRI process and it was quite extensive, making a business plan and figuring out the logistics of how this business would work. And then, working with architects and consultants. And finally, we were awarded grant money to help with the project. So I was like, oh, wow, this is actually going to happen because I don't know. Because we started the process and then COVID hit.
Yep.
So everything was kind of on a standstill. And so I think it took a year and a half, 2 years to find out that we won the award. Yep. So then, so we're opening a restaurant as we got. So it's going to be a Mediterranean Italian restaurant. The name's Sorella, which means sister in Italian.
Love that.
We'll also tie in the women's rights. It's just so important to the town and important to my culture of the businesses that I like to run.
Yeah.
So, we're working on that. It's taken some time, but I just met with the architects a couple days ago and they finished the feasibility study. So now we can start working with the bank and, going in that direction. So hopefully we'll see some progress over there soon.
So exciting. I know there are a lot of strings attached, but it's funny. When I started in business, I had no education no background in it at all. It just kind of happened. And I had no idea how grants or any of that worked. It was all foreign to me. And I mean, I think it's amazing because, we all pay into the state. And I think it's amazing that you get to have this grant to help to, bring this dream to fruition. And we need more restaurants in Seneca Falls. We all remember Henry B's that was downtown when I was growing up. And it was this amazing Italian restaurant. And it was like a destination for people too. And I think that, from what I understand, yours is probably going to be very similar. It's going to, now it's going to have a different feel from the cafe.
Oh, yes. It's, well, you're going to be a big part of that.
Yes, we are working with Casey on designing the interior, but this is her vision. So
it's not going to be like as modern as the cafe, but it's still going to feel very fresh and it's still going to feel modern, but not modern like the cafe feels. I'm not sure how to describe the aesthetic any better than that, but it's going to be beautiful. The food is going to be amazing. We're going to make all homemade pastas. It's going to be fresh. It's not going to be, I think around here, we see a lot of Italian American food.
Sure.
And, you got your chicken parm and veal parm and meatball subs. And I love that food.
The classics, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think that we're missing a more traditional style Italian restaurant around here. So that's what we're going for. We're going to have fresh seafood and, olives and capers and the homemade pastas and some very unique but comfortable food for people to try.
Yeah. Now, are you on TikTok?
Oh, yeah.
I am too. And it's kind of scary how well the algorithm knows you, right. But I have more Italian cooking on my For You feed than is probably healthy. And most of them are like these Italian grandmothers. I don't know. I've got Nonna Pia, and they're making all this genuine, authentic Italian food because my family's Italian too. My grandparents came over from Italy, and so there's just like this connection. And I mean, we live in an area with a lot of Italians. So I think a lot of people will be excited about, having homemade pasta and kind of some more authentic traditional things. So that's very exciting.
I had a really positive response so far. Every time I go out front at the cafe, everyone's like, when's the restaurant opening? I'm like, I'm trying to get it open as fast as I can.
I'm working on it. I know.
No one wants it open more than I do, I promise.
Yeah. And unfortunately, especially when you're going through dealing with a grant and things, I mean, they kind of set the pace.
Yes.
And so it can just it'll take time, but it'll come together. And I have no doubt it'll be a huge success. So kind of back to, entrepreneurship in general. Now you're married and you have a child. Mm-hmm. I feel like social media has kind of given entrepreneurship a new life, for better or for worse. In some ways it's, glamorized. And I just think that there's a lot of kind of false information out there. And one of these things that you always hear is balance, work-life balance. Mm-hmm. It's all about balance. You can achieve it. What are your thoughts? Is that a myth or is that something that you can do?
I don't know about balance with work. So, I mean, my saving grace is really my husband. Like I don't know if I'd be able to raise a child and do what I'm doing, trying to grow my business without his support.
Yeah.
He doesn't work in the restaurant with me. He has his own job and, but just having someone to talk to about the day-to-day things that are going on and, cook dinner when I'm like, I'm not cooking dinner. And he's like, okay, I got it. I'm like, perfect. Thank you.
What a guy. Yeah.
And we just work really well together. We've been married for almost 16 years.
Oh, wow.
And, he can finish my sentences now and he knows, like, I don't even really have to tell him I don't want to cook dinner. He just kind of knows when I get home now, but
yeah. Well, and it's hard for the people in our life sometimes too, because I mean, it's such an up and down life. Like everything is unpredictable.
Yeah.
Certain days you're just flying high and other days you're like, oh my God, we're going out of business. Like it's just, it's this like emotional ride. And so it's so important to like come home to a good partner who is like that stability when you've got just this chaos that is entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. It's so true. So kind of, as I say, back to like the social media entrepreneurship stuff, there's like this grind, hustle, all this kind of girl boss. That's one that I'm not a huge fan of, but, all this stuff about motivation and everything. And it all sounds good. It's great in theory. But, one of the things that people maybe don't understand about entrepreneurship is it can be exhausting. It's constant. And sometimes it can just be very monotonous. I mean, you're doing sometimes the same things over and over. You have to show up every day. It can be very draining and emotional. Like, how do you stay motivated to show up every day? Because you are very involved still in the day-to-day of your business. How do you stay motivated?
I think it partially is that I love serving people. I love cooking food. And so it's not hard to get up in the morning to go do that. And although I'm not necessarily like cooking or baking all the time anymore, I get to help Lauren, my baker, JJ, who's my line cook, my sous chef, develop their thought process and their growth in cooking and like work with them and, banter back and forth about how we're going to do stuff. And, that's definitely motivating for me. It's also motivating my daughter, Riley. She's 15. And, I want to set a good example for her. I want to show her that if you have a dream to do something, it's not just going to happen because you want it to, but it's if you work hard for it and put the time and the effort into it, you can be successful in doing that.
Yeah. I know there's this kind of idea of like, oh, the owner or the CEO, they just kind of put their feet up on the desk and just everything kind of works for them. And it's just, I have days where I'm like, God, I want to be working on the business, not in it. Yep. But on the other hand, there is a time to just be in there overseeing things, working with your people. And I think you have to have a passion for what you're doing, though. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out. I mean, I always say I could never work this hard for someone else or doing something that I didn't love, because it is so time consuming and soul consuming at times. But so you're definitely your passion is what gets you through it.
Like I said earlier, but I really want to grow for my employees' benefit so that they can grow and do more and, earn more money and provide more opportunities to them. So that's also very motivating, because I've had some really great people who, maybe right now they can only work like 28 hours a week and they really want full-time hours, and they're loyal and they're committed to the business and serving customers like I would serve them. And that's really hard to find. And like, I want to reward them for their hard work, and it's huge. It's hard to find people like that. And when you do, like, I want to keep them around. I want them in my circle, in my court,
Yep. I know. It's interesting how that happens, because again, when I started out, I kind of stumbled into retail and into owning the business. And I didn't really have a clear path or goal, but I knew it was my dreams. It was what I wanted to do. And now we brought on our first full-time person in October, Jenna, and she's amazing. And she was with us part-time for a little over a year. And, now it's like, I want her to do well. She wants this to be a career. And I mean, I want her career to be amazing. So it's like all of a sudden when it shifts from being about you to being about your staff, it's like there's a bigger goal here. And that's a biggie for me for showing up too, because it's like the business can run for days at a time without me stepping foot in there. Yep. But at the same time, I feel like if I drop the ball, it's not just me who would lose out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I totally agree with you on that. So as far as motivation, we got that. But how do you, with the chaotic nature of business, I feel like my routines in my life have become very rigid. I have like a bedtime that I stick to. I wake up at the same time every day. I have a workout routine and a morning routine. Do you have systems in your life that kind of keep some structure for you, or is it kind of just play it by ear?
Yeah, I definitely have a routine. But sometimes the routine becomes monotonous, like you were saying. And then it's like, okay, Chris, it's time to go on vacation now.
I know. It's Groundhog's Day for sure.
I do. I wake up at the same time every day, get up at 4, and then I go into the restaurant, get myself some coffee, talk with Lauren, my pastry chef, and, set a plan for the day. Mm-hmm. And then the kitchen staff comes in and we set a plan for the day, and then we get through our rush, and then I go pick my daughter up from school.
Okay.
Make dinner, go see my parents. And, then I have a bedtime routine, and just, I think it's important. We are so busy to set aside time to make sure that, we're taking care of ourselves properly. And, if I don't do my bedtime routine, then I'm not going to sleep as good. And if I don't get 8 hours, I am a strict 8 hours of sleep kind of person. 7.5, I don't feel as good as I do with 8. And if I sleep 9 hours, I don't feel as good either. It's like, okay, that's 8 hours of sleep.
Spot. Yeah.
Yep. So, and I know that about myself. So it's important, if I'm going to function good the next day, that I do these things so that I know I'm going to get a good night's sleep. And
yeah, 100%. I mean, again, I feel like I've gotten just the best on the job training and trying things that worked and didn't work. And I mean, for the longest time, I just didn't really give much thought to bedtime, wake up time, exercise, what I'm eating. And then, I mean, I don't know if it's just getting older or what it is, but now, like you say, if I don't get 7 is my sweet spot. If I don't get 7 hours of sleep, like I'm a nightmare, and then I'm eating like shit. You know what I mean? It's like everything kind of just dwindles. And so, I have to be pretty rigid with my routines too. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, it's something that's kind of come up in my business in the last, I would say, couple months or so. Obviously, we know we're in an economic time where prices are increasing for us, for customers, for everyone. And, we've kind of really tried to stay fair and split some of the costs. And, we don't run a lot of sales. We just try to keep things, pretty fair. But we've noticed that some people will come in and, they'll be like, oh, well, I loved that, but I got this for $9 and it's a company that it's Shein. Everybody knows Shein, and there are issues with the company morally, and they're like, oh, I know, but it was $9 and it's so cute. Or someone will be like, oh, I saw that at your store and I found one at TJ Maxx and you're just like, damn, it kind of cuts a little bit. And so you guys have always stayed kind of, I think, in the same realm as us where, you're fairly priced, but there's no dollar menu, right?
Yep.
So do you deal with any pushback on pricing? And if so, have you ever considered sacrificing quality for low prices, or are you confident and comfortable with where you're at?
Yeah, no, I'll never sacrifice quality for lower prices. I think that's why we've had the success that we've had.
Yep.
And I know this might sound kind of harsh, but if you don't want to pay the prices for the quality of food we're putting out, then you can go somewhere else. That's
there are
totally
other options,
fine.
Right?
There's lots of other places to eat. I don't expect that my restaurant's going to fulfill the need of every single person out there.
Yep.
But, the people that do come in and support us understand why they're paying the prices they are. And frankly, you can go to McDonald's now, and if you get a hamburger and a soda and French fries, it's not cheap.
There's
You're probably honestly paying more than you would at a small business to support them. And, the money's going to be used a lot better and go back into the local community.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to get to that point because I would feel bad about raising prices.
And 100%.
I am very cautious and thoughtful with it now, but I'm not scared to do it anymore. It's necessary. Like things are expensive, and I didn't go into business to go out of business. And I like to
and you
say
have,
that.
like you say, you have staff too. That it's one of the hardest things because, I know that people struggle. We're living in the same world. We know everything costs more, and one of the companies that we work with, Eco Candle Company, they had to go through and do an increase. And they just straight up sent everybody an email and said, listen, guys, like, we're not willing to change our formula and this just needs to happen. And we're sorry. Hopefully if things adjust, we'll adjust. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I have so much respect for that. And I think it's just a good reminder. And why I wanted to ask you about it is because there are always going to be those bargain shoppers and those people who are just looking for the bottom line and don't really care about the quality as much. Mm-hmm. And then there are people like me who I'm like, if I'm going to eat out, I want to eat fresh salads and, fresh baked breads and things that you carry rather than, going and just getting something that's cheap to eat. Especially when it comes to your stuff, what you put in your body. I think it's good to pay a little more for quality.
And I think sometimes people don't think of like the long-term effects and the cost of that. Using the eco candles is better for your health in the long run. People probably don't realize the chemicals and toxins that are in regular candles that they're breathing in, and then what the long-term effects are. Just like, you can eat McDonald's and maybe you're saving $1, maybe not. But in the long run, consuming that stuff all the time, it's not good for you. So I know you're going to pay for it later.
You're paying somewhere.
For it now. Yeah.
Exactly. I know. We've talked a little bit about like the ups and downs, the volatility, the unpredictable nature. Do you get lonely? Do you ever feel like you're kind of tackling some of these things alone, like nobody around you gets it? Do you ever have moments like that?
I do, but I tend to I'm not a super emotional person. I don't know. It's just
God,
my nature. I don't know why. Something will happen and everyone at the cafe will start crying. And it's not that I don't feel for the person or whatever the situation is, but I don't know. The only thing that makes me cry are English movies.
Wow.
British movies. I don't understand why.
Yeah.
But
that's what gets you. Okay.
But It does get lonely sometimes, but I try to just sort of not dwell on it and move on. I also do really like alone time. Sometimes, restaurants can be super crazy and chaotic and, I'll be in there and I've got 5 people asking me questions at the same time. And I've got to, real quickly come up with answers and good direction for them. And, that can be very exhausting. So I definitely like being by myself sometimes. I know that's different than being lonely, but I enjoy solidarity at times.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons that I started getting up at 4 a.m. is because those 2 hours that I have where I do my morning routine, it's just me and my dogs. It's completely quiet. That's when I do journaling. I kind of, I'll make plans for the day. Sometimes I'm updating the website or editing footage from our content stuff. And yeah, the alone time is nice because sometimes, I mean, when you're in business, sometimes you got to be on even when you don't feel like it. And that can be, tiring. Sometimes I feel like it's hard for family to get it when you're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted. And they're like, well, we went to work today too. Like, what do you know what I mean? Or, just the stress because, we don't just punch in and punch out. Like you say, you're carrying the burden of your employees. And am I making the right decisions? Oh God, is this risk that I'm taking on this new line? Is this going to work out? And, there's just a lot that you're carrying and yet you're still trying to maintain friendships and relationships. And have you struggled to keep relationships and friendships with people since being in business?
Most of my friends are people that work at the cafe. I that's, and especially when I open the other restaurant, like that's my life. Like I'm not going to have a lot of downtime. Like my relationships that I have are with the customers and the, the employees and my family. And I have the most amazingly supportive family. Like my parents come into the cafe almost twice a day and eat their meals. And, then I'm actually able to interact with them. And my brother, he lives in Syracuse with his family and they try to come out, a couple times a month and eat and they order cakes all the time. And, it's my in-laws come out every week from Auburn and it's nice to have the support of my family and having, my husband's worked in restaurants, so he gets what it's like, and my brother has, and my parents grew up with my brother and I working in restaurants. So, we've been able to talk to them about how it works and what it's like. So, they definitely have a level of understanding about how things work. Probably not the stresses that I feel on a daily basis, but, like I said, I try not to dwell on that stuff and breathing I found is really important. Breathing exercises, like when I do start to feel overwhelmed and I pray and, my faith is really important to me. And like, I don't know how people get through life without having faith in a higher power, honestly.
I know. It's for a long time. I mean, I grew up Catholic, but for a long time, I just had so many questions, and which I thought meant, oh, I guess I'm not a believer, and in the last, I would say 5 years, it was like, okay, I don't necessarily have to subscribe to everything that was ever written here, but it just makes sense to me. And I on my walk every day, when I go out in nature, it's like, I can't be out in nature and not believe that there's a higher something. And so I do. I talk to God on my walks every day too. And it's just brought like a sense of peace to my life that I wasn't expecting. And I deal with anxiety and I get panic attacks, not as much anymore. I've kind of learned to manage it, but same. I mean, I don't think I could do this without that faith in my life. So that's amazing that you brought that up. Now, do you go to church regularly?
Yep. Every week.
Awesome. Yeah. It's so important to, I think just in general, it doesn't have to be a religion, but just to have something outside yourself, bigger than yourself, that's like this guiding force in your life. It's just so helpful.
There's also amazing, like supportive community there. Menzo, the President Generations Bank goes to church, and like just having somebody with like a similar background as far as his faith, and then like he's just so knowledgeable about business, and being able to have him as a point of reference, ask questions. And, he's always so available and like so humble and like willing to talk with me about like the littlest, stupidest things sometimes, but I appreciate it. Like having people to go to when we are feeling stressed about business, like just to bounce ideas off of has been huge.
Yeah. He's been very supportive of us as well. I'm eternally grateful for him. And he's very passionate about the town.
Yes.
And its success and its history, he's very committed to that. And so, he's a great mentor to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have some kind of rapid fire questions to round out our interview here. And so if you could answer these in kind of 1 to 2 sentences or less.
I will do my best.
Okay. What is something that you believed about business when you started that you no longer believe?
That it was going to be fun every day.
Is it worth it? The sacrifice, the stress, everything.
Absolutely.
If someone approached you today, comes into your cafe and is thinking about starting a business and says, Casey, what is one piece of advice that you can give me? What would you say?
It's not easy or fun all the time. You have to have a plan. Put a good business plan together. Find a group of people that will support you and can help you get it off the ground.
Yeah, for sure. What do you think the biggest lie about being an entrepreneur is?
That we're sitting at a desk with our feet up, just watching everybody else do the work.
True. So what's the best part about being a business owner?
It is rewarding. It's seeing the joy on people's faces when they eat one of my cinnamon buns or have just had a great meal. That is ultimately why I do it. I just love seeing people's reactions to eating or drinking something delicious.
Yeah. You've become a part of many of our routines, so we're very grateful for that. What's the hardest part?
Probably the times when it becomes monotonous.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you need to break up that routine a little bit and do something different for inspiration.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Casey. I want to acknowledge you. You've been kind of someone that I've looked up to for a long time. I consider you a friend. It's nice to, have someone that I can reach out to and talk about these things, the unpredictable nature and everything. And I'm so grateful that you came to be part of our first episode of Relentless. And we hope to see you again and can't wait to come eat at Sorella. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. And we should do this more often.
Yes. Next time with a glass of wine.
Yes. Sounds good.
Thanks for watching and listening. Be sure to follow us on all the socials: YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.